Well, hello everyone, and welcome to my podcast. I am Hayya Lee-McDonald, a real estate investor, sub-2 student, and mom, wife. And we are on this show talking about entrepreneurship, real estate investing, and everything that happens in between that, because life still goes on as you're doing business. Today, I have on my show Rachel Zane, and she is an awesome person. She's actually in the investing space as well, and she specializes in raising capital, which is not an easy skill to master, but she has mastered it. Rachel comes to us from a very diversified background with heavy operations experience, management experience, and also experience in the mortgage industry. So all of which she has leveraged in addition to her personality. She's definitely a social person, able to connect with a lot of people, and building relationships is really her forte. So she has put all of that together in her business to specialize in raising private capital. So welcome to the show today, Rachel. Thank you for coming.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to start off by just thinking about, because I'm always interested to hear how people began their entrepreneurial journey. Every story is different. I've shared my story with people a ton of times. It happened sort of by accident, and I wanted to become an entrepreneur, but kind of have to be pushed into it. So I'm curious, what is your story? How did you become an entrepreneur?
It's really funny that you asked that because I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. I actively fought against it.
So you were pushed too.
Hard because I was I said it out loud. I said, I never want to be an entrepreneur. I don't have it. I don't like it. It doesn't sound fun to me. And, I listen to a lot of podcasts with entrepreneurs, and they always have this vision and this goal. And I just never saw that. And I just didn't get it for a long time. And that's when when I started working in mortgages, I didn't want to be on the sales side. And everybody was like, no, start here. You're going to be great. And I wound up not really enjoying it. But I learned a lot. And so, but I think that was really the start of me being putting the idea in my brain. And that's where I was really fighting it. I was like, I don't like mortgages. I don't want to be an entrepreneur. And then as time went on, it kind of came to me in little pieces. And so I have rental properties. So I started renting, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm doing it already. And then I started lending as a private money lender myself. And I was like, okay. And then as time went on, I was like, okay, maybe I can be an entrepreneur. And then I started to see the vision in my head, and I was like, oh, yeah. All those people and all those podcasts that I listen to see, and it just came to me, and I was like, whoa, I could take this really far. And so that's kind of where it started. It was something just pulling me. It was meant to be, I guess, because I couldn't stop it if I tried at this point. And I was trying to find other things to do, and I would find myself just looking at houses or talking to people in real estate. I couldn't stop myself. There was some kind of hidden force just pulling me. So that's really how I got into it. Some kind of
I think, with entrepreneurs, there's just something about us. It's a character trait that you can't really hide or disguise, or it's not properly taken care of when you're working in a corporate job somewhere. That part of you that it's like the explorer part of us. If I could put it into words, you can't suppress that.
You can't. And I guess that it's funny you say that, because now that I think about it, as a manager, especially at first, I would be like, why aren't they just doing these things? Why don't they understand? This is just what you do. So maybe I had it in me the whole time, and I just wasn't aware of it. But that's really true.
Yeah, I was one of those kids, and I still remember my parents telling me this. I am that kid where you don't just say, do this, because I'm going to want to know, well, why? What happens? I was that kid. My parents said, don't touch the iron. And I'm like, well, why not? You didn't tell me why. So I touched the iron because I need the answer.
You had to.
I had to know. Yeah. So what would you say to anyone who's listening right now, who's thinking the same thing you were thinking? I am not an entrepreneur. I got to stay far away from this. And realizing that not everybody's cut out for entrepreneurship. But if someone has the idea, well, I don't love what I'm doing now, and I haven't found something that I love, how could they really start to figure out, am I supposed to be going in the journey of creating something on my own, or what would you say to them?
I would say put yourself in a room or in situations with other entrepreneurs of what you think you might want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so like even before anything started for me, I started to show up to meetups of other investors, and I started to meet people, and I started to grow connections. And that way, when I had questions, I had people to call. But also you're in a room with people that maybe think differently than the rest of society. And so then you can start thinking differently as well. And the more you're around people like that, the more you learn, and people change your perspectives every day. So put yourself in the room with people that are already doing that. And then once you're there, just be really open and aware to potential opportunities, because you never know when something's going to happen. Like some of the most random things will happen. So you can't go into it expecting one thing or another. You kind of just have to be out there trying intentionally.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things for a lot of us in the world. Safety and security is really important. Actually, it's one of the basic human needs, right? Safety and security. And being in entrepreneurship, there are so many unknowns. So for someone who really wants the safety and security, that's a really scary thing to do. So how do you get over that fear?
It takes time, and different people do different things, right? So some people, I know a lot of people that still have full-time W-2 jobs and do real estate on the side as they build, their network and net worth. And so I think everybody has to kind of decide their own journey and learn to be okay with that. And on top of that, I will say you have to think about failure in a way that most people don't think about failure.
Yes.
Because as a society, we see failure as bad, right? At least I did. I was raised to always be scared of failing, and it held me back for a really long time. And then I listened to one of those podcasts, and this woman was talking about how she was raised to think failure was a good thing. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, oh, like failure, it's not bad. It's learning. First attempt at learning. And I was like, you constantly have to be pushing yourself and changing your mindset from potentially what you were told your whole entire life.
Right.
So that's kind of where I would start.
There's a book that I read, and I can't remember. I know it's in my library downstairs. But there's a book that I read a long time ago, and what he said, and it was just this, failure was never something that I was afraid of, really, because I've made lots of mistakes. And it's great because I've learned so much from it. And actually that contributes to my success in the real estate investing space, making the mistakes and learning things that you wouldn't otherwise learn. But what this guy said in his book was that a lot of people think that failure is the end of the road, but failure is really just a part of the journey from starting to success. It's just a part of the journey. So if you stop, you've just stopped in the middle of the journey. Like you haven't reached your destination yet. Plus, you missed out on all the lessons you could have learned from that supposed failure. So, Rachel, you mentioned that you had rental properties before you even started thinking, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. You had rental properties. What made you even decide to get a rental property? Where did that come from?
Well, I was in the mortgage industry, and I saw people doing it, and I knew I wanted to do it. And my story, I guess I did maybe the Burr method sort of unintentionally. I bought a house and I lived in it, and I got roommates, and I was like, great, they can help me pay for it. And then eventually they moved out, and I was like, I bet I could rent this house. Like, I really think I could do this. And I was terrified. And I was like, do I rent another house? Do I buy a house? Like another house? Like where do I go? And I kind of fell into something really lucky where I had a friend that was out of the country, and she had just purchased a home, and she was like, well, Rachel, why don't you move into this home? We'll rent it to you. And then you can try renting out your property to see if you like it. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was presented a really beautiful opportunity, and I just took it. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that if I didn't like renting it, like it gave me like a little bit more cushion. And so that's how I started renting. That's how I started. And now most of my other properties are kind of like equity. So I don't have to landlord as much. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm really focusing on the capital raising now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's really interesting to hear your story. And what I'm hearing as a theme as you talk is just this openness, like being open within yourself. So now you've rented properties, you've house hacked, you did the BRRRR method unintentionally. How does that transition into raising capital?
So this is another one of those things where I was originally looking at flipping houses, and I was like, you look at all the hard money and you look at all the loans associated with it, and I was like, why don't people just pay their friends? Like why can't they just borrow money from their friends? And
There's that why question, right? You just always asking why, like why?
I feel like that could work. I didn't even know private money was a thing. I was just like, I feel like, why not? And so I was like, there has to be a way to do it, and like some kind of protections. And so it like was digging in my brain. So it started digging in my brain, and I called my friend whose house I was living in, and I was asking her about it, and she was like, Rachel, over my dead body. And I was like, okay, well, you said no, but like, I know people are doing this. And like, it just didn't stop. And I found it really difficult to find good information on lending, on private money lending, and like how to do it safely. And that's when I started looking for other avenues. So actually, I wound up wanting to private money lend myself, because for me, I have to do something in order to understand it and in order to ask other people to do it. And I think that's fairly common. And so some people go both ways, right? But that was my way. And so I started looking for opportunities, and I ran into this woman. Her name is Talisa Stubbs. And she does what I do now, where she connects investors with private money lenders. So we had a few conversations, and she sent me a few deals, and I was like, no. And then she sent me one, and I was like, yes, I will do that. And so I went through the process with her. That money is actually out there right now, and I'm expecting it to come back. They just listed the house for sale, and they have offers. So I expect it'll come back in the next maybe 2 months or so. And then one day I texted her, and I was like, well, she's already doing this. I think I'd be really good at it. So I asked her if she would teach me. And her response to me was, I'm actually looking for somebody to come work with me. I need some help in operations and some other things.
That's perfect for your background, right?
No, I was like, bet.
Oh, look at that.
And so if you had asked me 6 months ago, would I be here? No, I would have laughed. And then she offered me an opportunity, and I took it, and I've been rolling ever since. And I still lend out my own money. And now I connect with so many investors and so many private money lenders. Like they just come to you. It's like fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I think it's energetic too, like when you're operating in a space in an energetic level that is, in sync, then you do start attracting things, and people who are of like mind and goals and kind to you. So were you going to say something about that?
Can I tell you?
I know we talk about energy. Yeah.
There's something hysterical that happened literally before we got on this podcast. So somebody had called me last night, and it said Home Buyer Solutions. So I called them back this morning, and it turns out the guy was a wholesaler in Minnesota, but I don't know, my name is on some property in Colorado, apparently. I'm from Colorado. I don't know how my name is on it. I don't own any property in Colorado, but I started talking to him, and I told him, I said, I'm in real estate too. And he said, what do you do? And I said, I raise capital, and I connect private money lenders with investors. And he goes, so he told me his background. He goes, I'm actually looking for some private money lenders right now. And I was like, well, I have to go because I'm about to go and do a podcast, but we can talk tomorrow more about what you're looking for. So it's like, sometimes just like when I say random things, like, I didn't know when I call this guy back, he was going to be looking for private money lenders, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But in the meantime, I've made a new connection.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too, I think that people should really take away from this conversation is that if you try to figure out all the steps from A to Z, whatever it is you're about to embark on, if you're trying to figure out all the steps before you take any step, well, you're cutting off a lot of opportunities, because what you've shared is that you took steps, you had a question in your mind, you're like, well, what if, and you went and explored it. But had you tried to figure out every single step to the end goal, there's a whole lot that you would have missed in between.
Yeah.
So one of the things you said about your style of raising private capital is that you want to make sure that the investors are safe. It's a safe and secure investment, and also a productive and profitable investment. So what makes you different from other people who are raising capital? And this is not about, I'm better, this other person's better, but what makes you different that attracts investors to you?
As private money lenders, because I work with, okay. I think the fact that I've done it myself makes people feel a lot more comfortable. And I've done it myself using the system that I'm asking them to use. And because of the system that we have set up, like I or somebody will talk to investors, borrowers, before we even will send them through to our system. And then once we've sort of talked to those people, then we send it into underwriting, and then it has to pass underwriting. And so there's a multi-step process to help protect the private money lenders. And then we have a transaction coordinator that helps fill out all the legal paperwork, that works with title. So for somebody that is a little uncomfortable, or maybe it's their first time, or they have a full-time job and they don't have time to be vetting all these people like that, we always recommend everybody does their due diligence. But we've done due diligence first, and then it makes it easier for the PML to go in and do their due diligence. And I think really the way I look at it is, and I'm not saying other people don't do this, but I just want to help people. And I want people to make more money than they would make in stocks or in their other investments. And I want to help them do it safely in a way that they can understand. And so I really think that is where it's different. It's not about the money for me. I turn down money all the time. I would much rather the private money lenders be safe and happy and working with an investor that they are comfortable with. And if something does go wrong, because it's real estate, sometimes things go wrong, they can have that open communication. And so that's really what it is for me. And if I feel at all like that's not going to happen, I would never ask a private money lender to fund it. So I would never ask them to fund a deal that I would not myself fund.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we've got a couple minutes left here in this podcast, but if you can briefly share, what is one of the most successful pairings that you've made between a PML, a private money lender, and a transaction? How did the biggest deal, like what was the biggest profit that you've helped an investor achieve? Without giving specifics.
So 130,000 is the biggest we've done, and we are always tweaking it. So I would say, moving forward, if it's our first time working with an investor, we stay between $150,000 and $100,000 for our private money lenders. That just makes them feel more comfortable. Like that's where our private money lenders are. So, and then once you work with people more and you say, hey, we've done several deals with this investor, they're always paying their private money lenders back, and they're always doing this, then we can look at going bigger. But that makes the private money lenders more comfortable. So 130,000, but we really prefer to stay between that 50 and 100,000, depending on how much we have worked with the investors.
Awesome. So if someone wants to begin working with you or explore working with you, putting their money with you and getting it to work, because, right now interest rates at banks, the banks are pushing their CDs because they've got the 5% interest rate, but who wants to have their money just sitting, really not doing anything somewhere?
Wow.
So if someone wants to work with you, how do they get in touch with you, and what is the first step? once they've reached you?
Yeah. So anybody is welcome to call me. I get calls all the time. My phone number is 970-402-7286. You can also email me at Rachel Kane, Kane, at herinvestments.org. You can find me on Facebook, Rachel T. Kane. That's really the best way to get started. If you're interested in becoming a private money lender, we actually have a form that you can fill out online. You can go to lending.herinvestments.org and it'll pull up a page. And then actually that page will connect with my associate Talisa's Calendly link. So you can either connect with her on Calendly, or you can give me a call and connect with me directly. And even I will say, people are nervous, but it doesn't cost anything to talk to me. And I'm happy to just have a conversation with anybody that is interested.
And clearly you're good at conversation, right? We're having this conversation here. It's just great energy. So I would think that someone, for me personally, if I'm lending, I do, even in business, I want to work with people that I vibe with. And you've got a great vibe.
Thank you. So do you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for being on the show. I don't know why I wanted to put a Z in front of your name. I don't know why I would have put a Z. But yes, thank you, Rachel.
Tell you later. That's okay.
Yeah, thank you for being on the show, Rachel. And this is Rachel Kane. She is a private money. She facilitates private money lending relationships. So if you want to invest and put your money to work harder than you're working, I think retail is a great place to start. We both have the privilege of being part of Face More We Sub 2 program. And so that exposes us to a lot of opportunities, a great network of people. And so connect with Rachel, connect with me. We will get you into this network as well. So Rachel, again, thank you for being here. Last words that you want to share with anyone before we hop off?
Just learn and experience. And I hope to connect with many people that listen to this podcast. Just do it.
Awesome.
Is that legal to say? I don't know.
Nike, right? Yeah, I don't know. They probably have a trademark, but
I said, I gave you
say
credit.
It all the time. Yes. Well, thanks, Rachel. And thank you guys for listening. Tune into the next episode and we'll see you next time.